Show on Footmex Live.
Only 2 days away from the World Cup. We have waited so long for this day. Forget the past results of qualifying. Forget the Clembuterol, the Chepos, the Aztecazos, the bad qualifying. Ladies and gentlemen, we have here, let's make some history. It's the World Cup. Welcome to another edition of the Mexican Soccer Show. I am Wiso from FootMexSource.com. With me, probably the well-known journalist around the world for Mexican football. From Guadalajara, not in Boston anymore, not following the team, Tom Marshall. How are you, sir?
All good, Wiso. Yeah, looking forward to the World Cup, like I think everybody, no?
Good to hear. Also, this man needs no introduction from Mexico City. Eric Gomez from Fox Deportes. Sir, how are you?
Doing great.
Great. And for the first time and on video, an accomplished renowned writer from FIFA.com, also Medio Tiempo, Martín del Palacio, is in Fortaleza right now, already feeling the rhythm of Brazil. How are you, sir? I know it's late. Thank you for being on. How's it going?
No worries. My pleasure. All good. Getting ready for the World Cup. Just a few days away from it.
Good, Martin. Well, we have a great show for you guys. It's only days away. We finally waited, like I said, 4 years. It's on everyone's mind. How is Mexico going to do? What are we going to see? The starting 11. We have a great show. A quick recap for the Portugal game. And obviously, how is Piojo going to make us into that famous quinto partido so we can participate in that and further and beyond, guys? This is the Mexican Soccer Show. Let's get started. Let's get right to it. Portugal, how did we see that? I know there were some problems that we saw at the end. I think we played a hell of a game, expected on what our results, especially after Bosnia. People didn't know how we were gonna field, what was gonna happen. He did show out that starting 11, obviously with Corona in the beginning and Ochoa in the end of the game. So I'll throw it out to you, Tom. The Portugal game, did it mean a lot? The result, but how did you see it?
I think generally it was pretty positive, that second half. I thought it was the best under Herrera, you know what I mean? I thought they actually put it together and they were the better team against Portugal, obviously missing a few big names, but a highly ranked team and a very good team. So I thought it was generally positive, but I thought it was an honest portrayal of Mexico as well, because you saw at the end, Bruno Alves pop up completely unmarked, and obviously this was always the deal with Mexico when Herrera took over. There was always going to be a case of kind of a real rush to get to this World Cup, to get a team, playing together. And I think that's, Mexico are probably going to suffer at some point in the World Cup from lack of defensive cohesiveness. And that was, Bruno Alves' goal in second half injury time.
One thing, obviously, they keep saying the set pieces have always hurt us, and we saw it in the end. Did the team give up, or were we lucky to get that result? Eric, what did you see on the assessment? If obviously if Pulido makes that goal or we're going in, it's 1-0, 1-1, everyone's okay with it. At the end, 1-0, at the end we lose, and people are saying, we have not scored with our forwards. All of our 6 goals, are coming from away, maybe one of Giovanni. Do we have to worry about, our forwards not scoring?
Yeah, well, as my man Raúl Orbañanos would say, si la metes gol. He just didn't score. We've been having a lot of trouble with not generating the offensive opportunities, especially against Portugal. There were a few opportunities against Bosnia, but they were markedly less than the ones that we saw against Portugal. But still, you have to worry about who's going to put the ball in the net. Uribe's seen a sudden dip in form. That's got to be worrying. Chicharito's not up to speed from where he was 2011, 2012 for obvious reasons. And Giovanni Dos Santos is going to be most likely employed as an 11, as a guy that's going to be rounding about the number 9 striker inside the box, and he's going to be floating around behind him. Despite that assessment of what we saw against Portugal, I think that once the cards are dealt against Cameroon, somebody's going to have to step up. Is there going to be any huge tactical adjustment to allow strikers and allow offensive midfielders to really edge up their play? I don't think so. Miguel Herrera has been pretty inflexible with his tactical system, despite what he says in press conferences. He'll go up and he'll say, we started out playing 3-5-2, but we ended up 4-4-1-1. I just don't see that, and nobody else with half an analytical brain has seen that from him. So I don't know what he's seeing. Despite any sort of tactical shift, I think it just boils down to whoever is confident enough to take up that mantle. If we don't see any big changes during the first 15 or 20 minutes against Cameroon, I think this team is very, very likely to fall into those old psychological holes. And if they're not able to get an early goal, then it'll be heavier and heavier and more difficult for them as the game progresses. Mind you, if Cameroon scores, it'll be that much more difficult. But sometimes that's just the kick in the ass that Mexico needs. To have that opposing team score against you is usually something wakes up within the Mexican team, and you see guys, sometimes even unlikely scorers like Rafa Marquez against South Africa 4 years ago, take up that mantle and say, I'm going to do this for the country, I'm going to do this for the team. So, yeah, it is a big problem, it is a big concern, but we'll see how they react come Friday.
Good. Martin, one of your tweets right after was just saying calma. You know, all the games before the World Cup, they're even less than friendlies. People are not playing 100%. The coaches is trying out a lot of things. What were your assessment of the Portugal game?
Well, as I said, the results of Cup usually don't mean much for a team. I'll just give you two examples. For example, in 2010, Spain did indeed win all their friendlies before the World Cup, and they were champions. But then Brazil also won all their friendlies before the World Cup, and they crashed out in the quarterfinals. So that's one example, and the other is that Mexico has had very different pathways through the World Cup, very different friendly results before these last 5 World Cups, and as we all know, we've crashed in the round of 16. In general, friendly results don't really mean anything. This said, obviously, you have to check to watch like individual performances, tendencies, things that could be interesting. And I think that match was interesting for that. You could see Héctor Herrera as one of the if not the most important player in the team so far. You saw that the defense still lacks cohesion, especially when Matt is concerned. We could see that Giovanni and Noribe still need some work together, and they're not gonna get it. We could see a lot of things. I also think, and I spoke to Héctor Moreno before the match, and he seemed concerned about the possibility of more injuries. So obviously, as injuries keep on piling on for different teams in the run up to the World Cup, players are getting more and more concerned. And I think it was that played a part in that game, not just for the Mexican side, but also for the Portuguese side. I felt that Portugal slowed down the tempo intentionally in the second half, and Mexico were better because they needed it more. I just think that we shouldn't pay much attention to these games and the results, and just try to figure things out, but not jump into any conclusions. It's just worthless.
Good to hear that. I mean, obviously in 2010 we did beat the world champions, Italy, right coming in. They had that 90-second tiki-taka play that looked great. Vela coming in and scoring at the end. People were going crazy about it. And people did say, calm down, it's just an early game. Nothing really happens. And we got out of the round of 16. But we can see it did help us out. I felt that Montes was definitely needed there. I mean, something in the middle, the creativity. Herrera, again, way above everybody else, doing magical things. But who knows? Portugal could have just been taking down 3 of their starters, obviously not in the game, and obviously Cristiano Ronaldo, who we all wish would have been playing, to see the magic that he does against our defense, which is ultimately a big worry for a lot of people. Let's move on from Portugal, and let's just talk a little bit about this World Cup 2014. We barely made it at the panzazo like a lot of people have to make, but all that is erased. I want to hear, what do you expect? If you're like, you want to know what the team is all about, I think for me it's really hard to figure out what we're going to know. I don't know if we're going to get out of the group. I think we can, but at the same time, it wouldn't surprise us if we don't for what's been happening. We haven't seen the 11 that Piojo wants in any games. You're supposed to already have preparations with your starting lineup, fine-tuning in positions. We're barely bringing an 11 in. But that's the process that we have after so many coaches changes, after a terrible 2013 of the qualifying. Let me hear your thoughts. Tom, what can we expect from this team, even though we've seen a little bit of it and little glimpses here and there? What can we expect Mexico for the World Cup in 2014? It's starting in 2 days, that very opening game against Cameroon. What do you see them playing, and how do you see them coming out?
I think they're going to be an exciting team to watch. I mean, I think we've seen a tendency in general in world football for like middling to lesser teams to kind of, park the bus, to really keep it tight and hit on counter-attack and set pieces. I think that's the general trend, and this Mexico team goes against that. They're going to take the game equally to Cameroon as they will do to Brazil. I mean, I think there's only one gear, if you know what I mean. That's the way Herrera plays, and that's the way they're going to go into the World Cup. So definitely a team to watch out for. Obviously, the 5-3-2 formation. I think the key feature is the wing backs, especially how high they push up the pitch. I mean, it's an offensive lineup, and no real massive star names like you get with other national teams. I mean, if this team is going to work, if Mexico are going to do something, it's going to be because the team functions as a unit. Obviously, there's the massive problem going in, as we mentioned, is that Herrera's only had 4 games with his full squad to kind of get this team working together, and that's just not enough time. And we saw against Portugal in that second half. There's plenty of positives, we mentioned some of them earlier in the show, but at the same time, there's just obvious, there's they can make mistakes. You can tell there's mistakes in this team. So, yeah, I mean, I think that at the end of the day, Cameroon are coming in with problems. Obviously, it's a bit of a cliche, but really have to win that first game, Mexico. And I think they're going to be battling out with Croatia, and that's going to be a really difficult game because Croatia are a decent team.
Very decent, and you see that. Obviously, the first match very important. Martin, describe this Mexico. How do you see it? If you're the opposing coach, and you're facing this Mexico, looking at it on film or looking at it in the past, what are the weaknesses? What are the strengths? What can you tell your team? You're the coach of Cameroon. You can tell all of us, how do we beat this Mexico? But at the same time, what do we have to watch out for? And can this Mexico make it out of the first group?
Well, the problem is that it's not easy to. I mean, I don't really know what this Mexico can show in the World Cup. In previous incarnations, it was pretty easy. You knew that with La Volpe, they were going to play the offside trap. They're going to press very high. They're going to try to overlap on the wings. It was a very easy. I mean, it was a system that everybody knew. With Aguirre in 2002, it was all about tiki taka. They had 60% possession in every game they played in the World Cup. With La Puente, you had a 4-3-3 with 3 very good forwards, or 5-2-3, but it was a very offensive team. With this team, it's really difficult to know because the actual starting 11 has just played 1 game. Mm-hmm. Which is the game against Portugal. So you don't know what. I mean, I think the main strengths of this team, and talking purely from an individual standpoint of what the average Mexican player can do. This is a team that's going to run a lot. It's going to play quickly. It's going to show good movement with and without the ball. It's going to press on a lot. But that's essentially it. Will that be enough? That's difficult to know. Cameroon are no much better anyway. They changed coaches as well. They were essentially they were very bad. With the exception of the draw they got to Germany 2-2, and that was a friendly. In the qualifiers, they should have been eliminated if it weren't because Togo fielded an ineligible player. So we're not talking about world powers either. Croatia is the same thing. I mean, we all talk about Modric, Rakitic, and Mandzukic, but essentially it's a very veteran team with Chorluka, Pletikosa, Serna, players, Olic, players who are way past their prime. So Mexico are not. I don't think Mexico are very, because they can't be very good due to the circumstances, but their rivals are not very good either. So it's a difficult group to assess in general. And paraphrasing again Raúl Orbañanos, but in a different way, everything can happen. In football, everything can happen, and now even more so.
See,
Uy, es que en el fútbol todo puede pasar.
Exactly.
Hey, don't get Wiso going with the impressions, man.
I gotta
Finger
study
the
more.
impressions,
I gotta
okay.
study more of Raúl Orbañanos. You know,
Qué bien me tratan.
Eric, he said anything that can happen. Everyone's looking at that Brazil game as a loss. Everyone already says it, even though, you know, the la piedrita, the little stone in Brazil's shoe. With what we have, just like Martin said, it's really hard to do it. But can it happen? Yes. Will it happen against Brazil? Will we be able to shock the world like we did in 2012 with that the Wembley win in the Olympics? Who knows? But Eric, what's your assessment on the team, kind of like the guys? What do you see, especially against the Cameroon match?
That Cameroon match is going, I mean, it seems obvious to say because it is, but it's going to set up the tone for Mexico for the rest of the group, and it's going to define in large part whether Mexico has a chance to make it into the round of 16. And as Martin said, you know, Cameroon is a team that is over-reliant on individual stars, and as a group, you can't really find a lot of strength in the style of play, and you can't really assess whether their style of play is going to match up with enough strengths to derail Miguel Herrera's plan and Mexico's formation, Mexico's strategy. Given that, you know, I do think that Cameroon offers a bunch of innate strengths that most teams hailing from that particular region of the world happen to have that can really hurt Mexico. And, you know, you tend to think that Mexico hasn't really generated a lot up the middle in these last friendly games, and what they have been able to generate is a lot of attacking down the wings, and they've been trying to find players via Miguel Layún and Paul Aguilar and Andrés Guardado launching these center balls into the box. That's not going to work against a team like Cameroon. A team like Cameroon is going to be able to outmuscle your. Have to rely on a lot of speed and a lot of positioning, which a guy like Chicharito Hernandez would be able to provide. But, you know, doesn't look like, or, you know, it's kind of a 50-50 at this point whether he's going to start or not. I think you do need to generate as much as you possibly can up the middle and try to go at their center backs with as much discipline and as much tactical know-how as you possibly can. You can't really play to their strengths on offense. But, you know, you go into that game against Brazil, and Brazil was able to shake that Mexican fantasma last year. They beat Mexico soundly in the Confederations Cup in Fortaleza 2-0. Neymar was absolutely spectacular for that game, and the team, you could see, was actually very, very connected to the idea that that Mexico was that first big test in the Confederations Cup and that first big psychological test into knowing that they could win a major tournament at home. I saw them. I was there for that game, and they were very, very satisfied. After the game was over, they spoke a lot about how Mexico was a piedra en el zapato, but they were able to surpass that test. The stadium support, the fans, were absolutely incredible for Brazil, and that was a hump that Mexico was never able to get over. I expect more of the same. I expect more of the same goosebumps when the Brazilian national anthem goes off and the team and the players sing the extra 2 verses or whatever, and the opposing fans and the opposing team and the referees are just in awe, because that's the only thing that you can really experience when something like that goes on. When it's all said and done, though, on the pitch, you fall into the cliches. It's 11 versus 11, and Mexico has been known to definitely
make Brazil struggle in the past. How have they been able to make Brazil struggle? They take the fight to them. They take the ball away. This incarnation of Brazil, this 2014 team with Neymar and guys like Marcelo, and it's very difficult to say that Mexico will be able to take the fight to them. I don't see that happening. I think the only strategy that they could possibly employ that will give them a fighting chance for 45, 30, 60, 90 minutes is the rope-a-dope. To clench those two back lines and put 10 men behind the ball and see if they can generate something via the counterattack with their speedy wingers. But that's still going to be difficult because Felipao is definitely tactically sound. He's not Mano Menezes. He's not Dunga. He's a guy that's able to provide explosive football but also maintain a tactical know-how. So you do have to chalk the Brazil match going into it as a loss. But, I think that if Mexico are able to get a draw out of that, they're in. Given that they might be able to win against Cameroon, which I still think is the stronger possibility. I still think that Mexico will win that game. But that might be a bit of a trap for Mexico if they are. If they're able to beat Cameroon and they go into Brazil, then they feel that they're maybe not obliged to go at this game 100% because everybody expects them to lose. Maybe if Mexico draws against Cameroon, they feel that pressure a little bit more and they're able to take bigger measures against Brazil.
Yeah, I think one thing that worries me about Mexico, and I'd be interested to see what you lot think as well, is I don't want to keep going on about the Portugal game, but set pieces. I mean, you look through this potential Mexico lineup for Cameroon, which has been leaked to the media, and people are pretty confident that that's what it's going to be. And you put a tick next to the players who are good at heading, defensively in the area. Very few. We've got Rafa Marquez, Hector Moreno. I think Massa Rodriguez is in over Diego Reyes for that reason, because of his strength and height, and he's just a beast, isn't he? But and then you look who else? Oribe Peralta coming back. You look at Gallito Vasquez and like Andres Guardado, the midfielders, and Hector Herrera, and you're like, all of a sudden you're like, you've got like 3-4 players who are decent heading in the, in your area. I think it's a worry. I don't know what you lot think.
Well, the set pieces have always, regardless of what team we've always had, I think it's always hurt us going in. So you're right. I think Guardado is like 5'4" and Vasquez is like 5'5" in feet here in the United States. They're really small players. We did see Massa head out, one of the and get top. And you're right. I don't see Reyes coming in. It'll be interesting. It's always hurt us in the past at set piece, especially those corners coming in and protecting them.
Sorry for interrupting, but that's just not true. Yeah. The thing is, we have the perception that set pieces have hurt us in the past, but a couple of years ago, I did this numerical study with some other people. One of them was, for example, Karim Ruiz, who now works with Eric, and essentially Mexico had rates like we saw how many goals every top team and Mexico received on set pieces and scored on set pieces. And Mexico was up there with Argentina and Germany and France. They were on the same level. England were way above the rest. Above. It was very impressive. Yeah. The States were a little bit better, but other than that, Mexico was the same as the other teams. The thing is, we tend to remember the amount of goals we receive on set pieces, and we think we're bad at it. But we're no worse than any other team. This said, it's obvious. Like height is obviously a concern. I remember when we thought we were going to be a world power back in 2011. We were also happy that our team had a few tall players, and in the Olympics it was the same. We thought like, finally we have a defensive midfielder like Chaton who can defend set pieces. Well, this is obviously not happening now, and it's obviously a concern because Croatia has a player like Mandzukic, Brazil has Fred, Cameroon, their average height is probably 180 or something like that. But I wouldn't call defending set pieces a weakness for the Mexican team. I just think we're not very. I mean, we're not very good at it, but we're not really bad at it either. I'm more concerned about other things like the physicality in midfield that I think neither Herrera or Guardado or Vasquez has, and you see the Cameroonian players, you see their strength, and I think they have it's quite possible that they overpower us there, and it's something that has happened with every African team we've faced in a World Cup. It happened with South Africa in 2010. Mexico were a lot better individually, but physically they struggled. Same with Angola in 2006. Angola were essentially an amateur team from the Liga de la Jusco, but they were so strong that Mexico struggled with them the whole match. So that I'm a lot more concerned about that than set pieces in general.
I think that if you to big worry for me, I know obviously Martin mentioned the other midfielders, but Vasquez, I've got absolutely nothing against him. I think he's played really well for Leon. Been great watching him like kind of grow into the league and win the back-to-back championships. But at this level, I mean, if you were to pick another player from another team, if like a non-Mexican, it'd be a top quality defensive midfielder for this Mexican team to pin it all together. You know what I mean? I think it's really lacking. I think it's a worry.
For Arturo Vidal, can we trade for that dude?
Patrick Vieira or someone, a real player who just absolutely bosses the midfield, pins everything together, and is physically imposing.
Oh man!
Well, if we wanted to trade for Vidal, we have to throw in, I don't know, one of our goalkeepers, Giovanni and Oribe.
It's like 3-man trade. Well, what are you talking about? I mean, we did have a world class. I mean, Medina was there. And where it's going. Martin, first of all, great analysis, especially on that set pieces. It is true. We all just kind of think about it. We're throwing in there that character of we're always bad on pieces. So thank you for giving that information. Always comes in with, no, hold on, guys. I'm going to calm everybody down. Let me show you what's up with analysis. So out there, so we can actually be calm. We can be calm for that.
Don't.
Oh, well, fine. We're gonna.
You'll never know. Yeah.
Only England is better than us. That's it's gonna stay in our brain. Only England.
Just don't Mexico don't play England and it'll be fine.
Remember, even Peter Crouch scored on Mexico. That's how bad.
No, but that game was unbelievable. I was there in Wembley when we played England, and. It was just ridiculous, We were so much better, and every time England had a free kick, it was a goal.
All right. Well, you guys mentioned obviously the starting 11 and what's rumored out there, and pretty much a lot of people have already said it. Obviously, Ochoa getting that starting spot, unless somehow. Him giving a jersey and just kind of trolling everybody during practice. But he did have, from what practices today and yesterday, a set team. Ochoa was on that 11 practicing. And obviously other people, Ruben from Fox Deportes, tweeting it out a couple of days earlier and being one of that fuente that we're looking at to see who it is. And the insiders that are coming in and out. Guys, Ochoa getting it over Corona. It's worth discussing. Is this finally the time that Ochoa gets the spot? And a lot of people are saying, why did Piojo go with that? If everyone kept saying Corona from the beginning, from 3 months ago, in that video he did say, Corona. He sees that. Why change now? Could it be that he's not 100% maybe from that knock, or why is it? Why do you guys think Ochoa got the nod over Corona? I personally believe he is a better keeper by inches maybe, but having Corona there, keeping it, I wouldn't have been completely mad. We have other things to worry about. I think the drama that's there. So, Eric, I know that you're in Mexico City. You see that all the publicity that goes around. I'm sure at every newspaper, sporting wise. I mean, Corona, Ochoa, the drama. Who's gonna pick it? What do you see? Obviously, it can't go wrong, but at the same time, was this a surprise for you?
There was a bit of brilliant investigative journalism published today by a major Mexican website that said that the reason why Ochoa was chosen over Corona was because Corona was tense and Ochoa was sure that he would be the number one keeper. So apparently, if you think positive thoughts, everybody, you can get everything that you want in life.
I believe.
You know,
Isn't
just
that isn't the
screw
secret?
working.
The secret.
Screw working, man. Screw working for it. You know, no. If you think positive thoughts, you'll get what you want. If you're tense about everything, I mean, you might as well be Tweak from South Park.
Martin said
You're not going to
Who
get
said
anything ever. But I'm not going to say because you write to that website. So I don't know, dude. You write to that website. I'm sorry. I don't want to.
No, it's that I that website. I don't know. I don't own the website.
I know. I know.
Martin,
I was just saying.
Explain yourself.
I was trying to be cool. I was trying to be cool. I'll pass the link along.
So FIFA.
Take a look at it.
FIFA is this investigative journalist website. Is that what you're talking about?
No, I don't think he was talking about FIFA.
I don't think. Yeah.
Probably best avoiding
Rest
FIFA
assured
though.
it's
While we're
not
at it.
FIFA or.
Disclaimer,
The Guardian
we were just
or
joking about
442
FIFA.
or
Disclaimer,
World
we were
Soccer
just
Match.
joking about
FIFA
FIFA.
is completely a great organisation.
Great
No problems there.
We were just joking, just to make people laugh.
I can't wait to go to Qatar. I can't wait to go to Qatar and be in it's 132 degrees out here. But yeah, no. Well, getting back to what we're talking about with Corona and Ochoa, you know, I think that it's a testament to Miguel and to the fact that he ran a pretty, in the sense that I think nobody expected Ochoa to go in as the number one keeper into Brazil. There were a myriad of reasons for that, not just the level of play, that the perceived level of play, but also the fact that at one point Ochoa wasn't even on the list. You know, we were talking about Talavera, we were talking about Corona, and we were talking about Munoz. I think a lot of people really discussed the fact that that spot was between Moises Muñoz and Memo Ochoa. Once we got into camp and we saw that it was clearly between Corona and Ochoa, then it got a little bit more interesting. You know, Miguel said it best. He is a little bit strange sometimes when he gives out quotes. I don't think that he's always completely upfront, which is good because you don't want a national team manager to be completely upfront with the press. But the fact remains that he said something that was very interesting. He said, you know, Memo is the best shot stopper out of the three, and Corona is the better keeper with his feet, the better guy who plays with his feet.
I don't understand that. Somebody explains. You know, we keep hearing this. He's better with his feet.
I think that can mean a couple of things. That can mean that he's better with the ball at his feet, and that could mean that he's better at positioning himself. I think that's actually a bit of a or in a street fight, he's able to kick a dude a lot harder than maybe Ochoa and then blame it on his cousin.
How important is for a keeper to be well with his feet? I mean, Manchester United keeper.
Modern football is very big on keepers playing well with their feet. It's not a complete prerequisite, but I think it's a part of the game. Now, is it the biggest part of a goalkeeper's game? Absolutely not, and I think that's why he's going to lean towards Ochoa in the end, because he said it best. You know, he said Ochoa is the best shot stopper out of the three. What do you need out of a goalkeeper? You need shot stopping. You need other stuff. Of course you do. You need positioning. You need reflexes. You need diving, and you need the ability to play with your feet. But essentially, he's going with the most vital, if you want to call it that, of statistics. If you want to break it down analytically, and you want to go into not this season but last season, 2012-13. It was very interesting to see that Memo Ochoa was allowing the same amount of goals, or he was at the same ratio of minutes to goals allowed than Jesus Corona. Why is that interesting? Because Memo Ochoa is facing off against guys like Cavani and Ibrahimovic and big teams like Marseille and Lyon, and Corona is stopping shots against Carlos Ochoa at Jaguares de Chiapas and Tiburones Rojos de Veracruz. That it makes a difference. Now, if you get into the 2013-14 stats, that could be a little bit of a skewed indicator because Ajacio's defense was that much worse, and the ratios of goals per minutes was definitely favorable to Corona. If you take a look at the games where they faced off against similar opposition, CONCACAF friendlies with the national team, then you see that their stats are actually quite similar. So I think, this was never a coin flip, but I think most people are very, very comfortable, like you said, Wiso, having either Ochoa or having either Corona. Statistically, I think that Ochoa can be given the nudge or the benefit of the doubt, knowing full well that the league that he plays in is generally at a higher level, not completely, than the Mexican league.
good assessment. Obviously, taking that Europeo stance. Estoy en Europa, tú no. The Netty stance, I like to call it. Martin, on a personal, just as a you, I mean, your preference, I guess, who do you think is better? You see it in Europe, you see Ochoa. Is that more just like Eric is saying? But obviously, how does leadership go into it of that defense? Was that a point of why Piojo maybe picked Ochoa been there, or with Corona's past? And on your personal preference, who would you obviously like to be the keeper?
I mean, I think if we talk about leadership, then Corona had the edge. I mean, he was the third captain of the team, I think, behind Marquez and Rodriguez. So I don't think that was something that Herrera took into consideration. Corona was the captain in the Olympics too. I'm going to say something that a Spanish journalist friend of mine told me about Casillas and Diego Lopez, which is interesting. Maybe, and I mean, I'm not comparing Ochoa to Casillas, but in a way they're similar keepers. Maybe he's the more complete keeper than Ochoa. But the things that Ochoa do are a lot better than Corona. I mean, his reflexes are world class. The way he handles himself in goal, his shot stopping. I mean, he's way better than Corona in that, and he can save. I mean, maybe Ochoa can. It's more prone to make a mistake, but it's also a lot more prone to save your ass in a match. To say it that way. I mean, we saw like the performances Ochoa had with Ajaccio against Lyon, against Paris Saint-Germain a few times, were way above anything Corona has had provided for Cruz Azul or in his entire career. So we're talking about like playing more on the edges there. I mean, Ochoa could. I mean, he hasn't had one in a long time, but he could have like a disastrous performance or make a big mistake. But on the other hand, it's way more possible for him to save Mexico in a complicated situation than Corona, and I think that's important in a World Cup in which. Because of all the reasons we've stated, Mexico will get attacked quite often. I mean, we will see Brazil, we'll see Croatia, we might see Cameroon attacking Mexico, and we will need a good shot stopper, not necessarily a guy who's more complete and who can handle himself well with the feet. So that's why I wanted Ochoa more. And on a different line of thinking, and I'll be quick. Something a bit on is that Herrera didn't want to call the Europeans because he thought they would be harmful for the team. In the end, he ended up calling them, and he's going to play them almost all. It's quite surprising how Herrera didn't know at all what the Europeans could provide. I mean, he didn't know that Ochoa was so good. I mean, he was surprised because he was so good. I mean, he has been playing at the same level for the last 3 years. He didn't want to bring Gio in because he didn't fit his system, and now he's playing him on as a second number 9, the position Gio always wanted to play, and he's going to start in the World Cup. So that means that Herrera didn't know what Gio could provide from a second number 9 spot. Hector Herrera the same. He didn't want to call him. He called him because he called everyone for the game against Nigeria, and he was so good that he's now probably the most important player in the team. So that's a bit concerning, to be honest. That the national team didn't know his players' possibilities, and especially those who don't play in the Liga MX.
But yeah, I think it's interesting picking up on that point that Herrera in interviews, he's always like, Mexico national team, it's the dream job. Any Mexican coach, it's the number one thing you can do. You look at South American coaches in Europe now, how many are absolutely top teams, you know what I mean? They skip the national teams there, go to Europe, make the name, and then go back to the national team, you know what I mean? Do it the other way around. I think it's an interesting kind of, it's the psyche of Mexican football, I think. That kind of vision of Europe, you know what I mean?
There's a lot of money. There's a lot of money being made in Mexico. We can
yeah.
saying that way. Great point, Martin. You know, this starting lineup, obviously the 11. You know, Paul, Massa, Rafa, Moreno, Layun, Vasquez, Herrera, Guardado, Gio, and Uribe. Most all of the team, I think, 8 players have played in Europe once in their life. Obviously, Massa coming back, Rafa, Moreno, Layun, as we can give it his stint, Herrera, Guardado, and Gio. So only 3 players that we could say: Vasquez, Uribe, and Paul Aguilar. If you know. Think about it when we came in January saying that 8 out of the 11 players have played in Europe before. So great analysis there on that starting lineup. So it makes a sense, obviously, the rhythm that's up there, that's across the pond and where the best football is played. And we're seeing it now in Mexico, fielding this many Euros that have played. Some of them are back, obviously. Let's move on to the defense and talk about the mid also. We have a couple, not so much time left, but let's talk a little bit about that defense. Obviously, Massa getting that nod over Reyes. And you guys said it, if it's the set pieces that were needed. I didn't see Massa mess up like normal, like everyone kept saying in the last 4 friendlies. Does he provide a little bit more? Was it the height, or was it Reyes really not performing the way that we want him to? If it's the way he was making a couple of mistakes. Was he not sure? And that was Piojo's decision. Eric, Massa and all his troubles. Are you surprised to see him on that list, or was he needed?
I'm not surprised to see him on the list. I'm not surprised to see that guy that Miguel Herrera has essentially trusted for the better part of the last 18 months is featuring for Mexico on defense. I'm pretty disappointed not to see Diego Reyes, but I think it speaks to your point about saying that he's going to prefer physical strength above maybe tactical flexibility. And I also think that the issues with Diego Reyes are more so with set pieces than a guy like Massa Rodriguez would be able to cover on. Still, you really want to think about what's good for the team in the long term. You really want to think about what a starting 11 might look like against Brazil and against Croatia. And you might want to think about how players are going to mesh with each other in real-time game situations. So I don't really think that this is going to be 100% definitive as to what we're going to see against Brazil defensively. I think that we may see Reyes come in for Rodriguez at some point, but I don't think that that's the best choice. I think that if he's going to go with Rodriguez, then he should just go with Rodriguez for all 3 games for the sake of continuity, for the sake of the defensive line getting more in tune with the other 2 players' movements. But that's going to be a slow-ass defensive line. That's going to be very, very troubling against a team like Cameroon if they choose to play you on the break, which they probably won't. But if they have the opportunity to, you've got Hector Moreno, who's not the fastest guy in the world, Rafa Marquez, who has, I think, 3/4 of one good leg left, and Massa Rodriguez, who is rooted to the ground and has pieces of foliage springing from his head. And that's no disrespect to Massa. I actually like the guy. He's a really nice guy, but he's not the fastest guy. So the issue is more so for this Cameroon game. What do you do for Brazil? What do you do against Croatia? What happens if it backfires on you and you're not as strong as you thought you were on set pieces or in general against Cameroon? So it's going to be very interesting. But we'll give Massa the benefit of the doubt for the next 90 minutes.
Good. Move it on over to Martin in the midfield to talk a little bit about Vasquez, Herrera, and Guardado. You mentioned Herrera being probably the best player coming into the World Cup, just what he's shown in the past friendlies. Vasquez in that lone defensive mid, and obviously Guardado, that's a surprise. Who would have seen Guardado in there, not having that creative midfield like Fabian and Luis, obviously Montes, who's hurt. But how important is that midfield, especially, Herrera coming in and can Vasquez do it by himself as a lonely defensive mid?
To be honest, I think that Montes was overrated in that system. I mean, everybody's now talking about how Montes will be missed when in reality, even as a starter. I mean, nobody was considering him as. I mean, I challenged my Twitter followers to find me a tweet or an analysis that said that Montes was indispensable for the team
I can give you
before
that.
he got injured.
Go back to my Twitter line. See that Leon? I've always said it, Montes.
Yeah, well, maybe for Leo, but I mean, to be honest, all of us expected Gulit Peña to be
Exactly.
a much more important player for Mexico. And I think the reason, I mean, obviously Montes is a very talented player, but he suffers the same issues than Gallito Vasquez. I mean, physically, he's a player who's not up to the standards of the opposition that Mexico will face in the World Cup. And also, the thing is that Mexico doesn't play with a creative midfielder per se. We play with a defensive midfielder and two box-to-box players. Be at least solid physically, and that's my concern with Guardado, which is not a very, very powerful player, and that's why I preferred Gulit Peña. But apparently, has been so underwhelming in training sessions that Herrera preferred Guardado, who's not an interior midfielder. He's usually a winger or a wingback, who was about called by him and last minutes. I mean, for Herrera to prefer Guardado, it's probably because Peña has been absolutely awful in the previous matches. So in the training sessions. So yeah. Obviously, mid concern. Just have to replace. Cameroon plays 4-3-3, so it'll be 3 against 3. But it's an area of concern for sure. And if Cameroon don't expect, Brazil will surely will, because I don't see how we'll manage to contain Paulinho and Ramirez, who are very strong, and Oscar, who's very talented. I don't see how it will happen.
He's going to have that change of coming in. And finally, Tom, take the top. The forwards then announced, obviously, Gio and Oribe. What a surprise. Obviously, Gio coming in and Oribe, who has underperformed, maybe, how we said that. Somebody tweeted out, obviously, Oribe is coming in. I think Nayib Moran. This is how Oribe was acting right before the Olympics. Going in there, not making the splash that he is, a little frustrated, but obviously how he excelled. How do you see that front two going into Cameroon and for the rest of the group play?
It's a difficult one. I mean, on paper, I think they're a good partnership. I think that Oribe Peralta, the reason that Herrera has put him as his number one striker is he can play with his back to goal. And if you look at that goal by Luis Montes against Ecuador, Marquez plays the ball into Oribe Peralta, who can hold it up. There's not many, the Chicharito's not very good at that. Other Mexican strikers aren't necessarily good at that. Raul Jimenez can do that, but he's not in top form. So I think that's why Oribe Peralta's there. I think Giovanni Dos Santos, I honestly don't see him like I was in the games in the United States, and I think this is only my theory, by the way, that Herrera wants 2 number 9s. He doesn't want a player dropping off. He wants two number 9s to occupy the opposition's centre backs. First of all, to provide a first line of defence, but also so that there's more space in front of that defence for the attacking midfielders, and then the wing backs to come in. And that's where Oribe Peralta comes into play, because you play the ball into him, and all of a sudden he should have 3, 4, 5 options of where to play the ball. I think that's the idea behind what Herrera is looking to do. So yeah, I mean, there's an obvious problem with the attack, and that's what I think somebody mentioned it, is that they've not played together enough. They need more time. This should have been an attack. He should have been more consistent over the last couple of years. Chicharito and Oribe Peralta haven't seemed to function. I tend to think that it could function with Herrera's setup, because I think it's very different, obviously very different from what Chepo was doing. But I mean, Oribe needs a goal. I mean, same with Chicharito. And it's not ideal going to the World Cup with strikers not in top form, but what are the options? You know what I mean? I don't think Jimenez and Pulido are realistic options, considering the inexperience at the top level.
Good. Well, we're looking at it. Obviously, anything can change in that 11. It's not confirmed unless Piojo tweeted out while we're in this podcast that those were the 11, which I hope he doesn't do. But everybody already knows it. What I ask from you guys is to give me maybe a prediction. Three things. Number one, obviously, how far Mexico is going to make it for this World Cup. if you can tell me if you will see that final quinto partido. Number 2, who's going to be the standout player for this World Cup? And obviously these are just predictions, fun ways to say it. Obviously every 4 years we like to say one person or the other, or two if you have that. And number 3, kind of on the downside, what are we going to suffer on? I mean, it could be a player, it could be, I don't know, penalty kicks, it could be something else. So those 3, kind of like to hear your thoughts to kind of end this show, this pre-World Cup going in. So one more time. 1, obviously how Mexico's going to go. 2, who's going to be the standout player or players. And 3, our biggest worry, a concern, or a player that is going to either fail miserably or not have the greatest World Cup. And we'll start with Martin. Again, thank you for being on. This it will be recorded, so this is your predicted, a recording of what's going to happen with Mexico, and we're going to have it on. So go ahead, sir.
Well, making a prediction is
There's like 84 questions there, by the way.
That's 3 questions. That's 3 questions.
I have to remember them all.
1.
No, I remember. Making a prediction is really complicated because people think that we as sport are more suited to do it, when in reality we suck as much as everyone else. So,
no. When you say goes, man, it's pretty on there.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I can say for sure, we're not making it to the quarterfinals. No way. There's no way in hell. I mean, no quinto partido. We have to be quite lucky to be in the cuarto partido, to be honest. I think this is the weakest team Mexico has fielded since 1994. Maybe not because of the intrinsic quality of the players, but because of the way the preparation and the whole process. So we're lucky that we're not playing top opposition in Croatia and Cameroon. But I'm not particularly optimistic with this team. I might be wrong. I hope I'm wrong, but I think we'll suffer a lot to be in that second round. And if we lose to Cameroon, it's essentially over. Then Mexico star player, I'm pretty sure is good. I think he's the best player of the lot. If we're talking like pound by pound, Hector Moreno will be okay too. I think if he's doesn't get crazy and substituting at halftime, and that's essentially it. Layun could be good too. But I make good individually, but collectively the team will struggle. And what I'm concerned that we might become the first team to get out of the World Cup. If we lose against Cameroon and against Croatia and against Brazil, we might be the first, and even we might be essentially out even before Russia and South Korea game. So that would be a record low for any team in the World Cup.
Be the first ones out, especially because we're in the first group. So.
And we played our second game is the first game of the second round. So that wouldn't look nice on any team, much less on us.
So we would know exactly almost a week tomorrow if we were in. We could be that. So hopefully not. Going over to you, Eric. Those 3 questions. Obviously, if we the prediction. Seeing us at the quarterfinals, can we do it? I think that's where everybody's kind of going for. But what, or unless you can say, of course, we're going to see Chile.
I see Brazil going through with all 9 points. I see Mexico pulling a Mexico and going through with 4 points. I think Mexico's going to beat Cameroon, then lose against Brazil, and then draw against Croatia for 4 points, and they're going to make it through. And I also see Mexico drawing Spain in the round of 16, which is not good. So I'm going to say that Mexico will draw 1-1 with Spain, and then they'll beat them on penalties 5-0. What? That's not going to happen. No, I think the dream for Mexico would be to face a depleted team in the round of 16. I think the Netherlands are very overrated at this tournament. Despite what people might say with Wesley Sneijder and Arjen Robben and Robin van Persie, I don't see their defensive unit being as stable as they would want it to be with that style of play that they are so enamored with. I see quite a bit of teams scoring on them. Spain, Chile. So maybe Netherlands, if they squeak through, that would be possibly the best choice for Mexico. If Chile makes it through and they face Mexico, that's a terrible matchup for Mexico. I think Chile is a fantastic team and a dark horse candidate. And Spain, as the world champions, I mean, they're not going to go out like chumps in the round of 16. So here's hoping Mexico faces the Netherlands in the round of 16 if they can. That's their best chance. And then whoever we face in the quarterfinals will be it. Quarterfinals for Mexico would be the best case scenario. A more realistic scenario that I would be predicting is those 4 points that I mentioned, and you're probably going to get Spain or Chile. And Spain or Chile are going to bounce your ass out. So it's going to be a very frustrating 6th World Cup in a row with just 4 games. But yeah, breakout player, I like Hector Herrera. And Hector Herrera is not really a secret anymore to anybody, but Hector Herrera is a hell of a player. And if he's able to put it together for 3 or 4 games, that would be amazing. Worst or letdown player, I think the letdown player for us is going to be Miguel Layún. Miguel Layún looks like Gringo Castro right now. Miguel Layún is just like blazing down the left side of the pitch, and then he lofts a cross in, and that cross ends up in the 3rd row somewhere. Just knocks a dude cerveza out of his hands. So,
but he scores goals.
Bold prediction.
So did Gringo Castro. Gringo Castro
Gringo
could
Castro
cut in, score a couple goals.
That Venado Medina 2.0. Very well out of the prediction, obviously, with the 4 points. Tom, and he said Hector Herrera. I mean, you see a lot of international press. You talk to your buddies in England. I mean, is this Hector Herrera? Because from what I hear with the Porto, with the fans and the Portugal fans, they were not big, even though it was man of the match a lot. They weren't big on Hector Herrera. Do you think that will be internationally known that Hector Herrera is going to be a top star?
Yeah, I mean, obviously people they're going to prepare for Mexico, and I mean, Paulo Bento in his press conference the other day before the Portugal game, he was saying, Herrera, Reyes, top players, very well respected in in Portugal. So yeah, they know. Should I do my 3? Or
do your 3. Do your 3.
Finish?
No, yeah, finish.
Yeah, all right. Alpha round of 16, and I think that'll be a success. Yeah, that'll be a big success considering where Mexico come from over the last 12 months. Stando Layún, the opposite of Eric. I think he's I think he's a modern player, powerful, fast, runs up and down the wing all day. I think he's exactly what the type of player that could go to Europe, and I think he's going to be I do think he's going to be a standout. And I thought against the European opposition in the last couple of games, I thought he was good. You know what I mean? He showed he was at that level. Mexico suffer. I'm going to say Miguel Herrera. I think at some point he's going to let himself down. I think he's just got that propensity to say stupid stuff in press conferences, and I don't know. I mean, sometimes I think of Hector Moreno and Chicharito and Rafa Marquez, who have had all these top coaches like Guardiola, Van Gaal, Alex Ferguson. And you watch that Televisa documentary on Herrera, and you think, man, what must these people be thinking when these top players be thinking when they when Herrera's coming in and coaching? I don't know, but I think I hope he doesn't. I like him. I think he's really honest, but I think he could let Mexico down at some point.
Wow, it's Sven Goran Eriksson. He's a top quality coach, and it didn't really work out, guys. Great predictions, obviously all over. We all kind of I think stick on we can get out of the group with this, but probably not making the quarterfinals unless something happens. But it's all in the game and the possibility that's there. Thank you so much for being on, guys. I know it's late, especially in Brazil. Martin, for you guys in Mexico and the U.S. right now, past 8 o'clock in Pacific time. It's perfect time to go have some dinner for me. But for you guys, I know it's really late, so thank you. I appreciate it, Martin, all the time. Good luck in Fortaleza. Hopefully, obviously, I know you have columns out all the time with FIFA and with Medio Tiempo and the others. Tom, thank you for being on and traveling a lot for it. And obviously, Eric, in Mexico City going on. I know there's a lot of coverage going on with Mexico. Please tweet it out. And this is the Mexican Soccer Show. One more, and I know that fans would definitely love it, to give me your World Cup champions. Just one word, no explanation, on who you have as a World Cup champion, to see what the experts obviously have in store in their prediction, if it's going to be Brazil, their home. And we'll close it off with that. Obviously, I have to say Mexico just because I'm a fan, but I don't see it happening. I'm thinking of an Argentina, just to throw it out there. I'm hoping we get that. I think it'll be fun to see Brazil lose, but to Argentina. Eric, one word, obviously one country. Who do you think is the World Cup winner?
Brazil.
Martin?
Yeah, I think so too.
Brazil. And Tom, England, right? Okay.
Spain,
Brazil, and I'll say Argentina. We'll see who is
no
right.
champion has repeated since 1962, and that was Brazil, and that was even without Pelé. So
stats doesn't matter.
You're betting. Hell yeah, they do. They matter. Hell yeah, they do.
Champions. All right, guys. Well, this has been another edition of the Mexican Soccer Show with a great cast today. Please tweet out the link. We'll have it on, obviously, on YouTube. We do have the iTunes. So for those of you that can't see it on YouTube on video, we do have that coming out usually a couple hours after. You will see that definitely. Guys, it's here. We finally waited 4 years in waiting. Enjoy it. We'll see how Mexico does. Arriba Mexico, and thank you guys all for joining on. This has been a great day and a great show, guys. Have a great day, and we'll see what happens.